Welcome back to Block TV. We'll saddle up those skis because the rich and powerful have made their way to Davos, Switzerland. The World Economic Forum is underway, and the annual event is a meeting place for the world's rich, famous and influential, featuring leaders, business executives and celebrities for a week of high-stakes discussions on critical topics of the day. Henri Arsalanian, head of digital assets at PwC Hong Kong, is there on the ground at Davos and joins us now. Henri, thanks so much for being with us.
Great to be here.
All right, so just kicking us off, tell us a little about what you're seeing, some of the main themes, main events, and what's happening over there at Davos, Switzerland, for those not fortunate enough to be there on the ground with you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's, I call it the Davos circus every year. I mean, there's obviously two big always events going on during Davos. There's obviously the main agenda, where there's about less than 3,000 people at the main Congress hall. That's the official agenda. And actually more than 200 of the sessions are actually available online for your viewers to watch. But there's also then on the side, all the side events that take place on the promenade. And obviously there's a lot of blockchain and crypto events. I would say there's at least a dozen or so different blockchain, crypto, MTech events going on this week. So very interesting what's happening from that perspective. Obviously on the main agenda, the big topic of conversation this week is climate change. Yesterday there was Ms. Thunberg who's there and actually really talked about the topic. And right after was Donald Trump, who came and said that those all these prophecies about climate change are a hoax. So really, there's a lot of conversations around that, but also a lot of conversations around growth as well. For example, PwC released a report, a CEO survey on Monday night, where we saw that the majority of the CEOs are actually quite negative on the prospects of GDP growth this year, and only 27% believe that there'll be revenue growth this year. So the image is quite bleak this year, according to a lot of the people we've been speaking to.
Yeah, certainly there is seems to be a little pessimism in the air, at least in the mainstream financial markets. But drilling in on sort of blockchain interests, digital assets interests that are happening here at the moment, there's been a lot of swirling recently around interest in central bank digital currencies, a lot of interest coming from the more mainstream into the world of blockchain. Obviously there at Davos is a real test to see if that's actually filtered through to the financial world. Are you seeing that happening? Are those of the mainstream finally starting to take blockchain a little bit more seriously?
It's a good question. I'm not sure the mainstream is actually that interested yet. Believe it or not, some of the events that taking place on the topic, on the main agenda, there's actually not that many. However, when you move outside of the main Congress hall, definitely central bank digital currencies are a big topic of conversation. The big ideas coming around are not only which country is going to be first, and they're obviously all eyes are on China, but also what are some of the challenges we'll need to deal with, from scalability, interoperability, to even privacy. So a lot of these conversations are taking place. For example, I was on a panel on Monday night with the former CFTC chairman, Chris Giancarlo, who's actually himself launched a new initiative on the digital dollar. So again, a lot of conversation around this. Yesterday, somebody from Libra was on stage as well. So this is CBDC is definitely a hot topic at Davos in 2020.
Now, as well, sort of getting back to more the mainstream markets and what's going on there, as you said, there seems to be a little bit more pessimism in the air, some of it related to the theme of sustainability, obviously climate change, a big topic of conversation there. But are you seeing that play out? You say you've been there a number of years in the past as well. Are you seeing a difference in tone this year to what's happened, say, in previous years in terms of the pessimism or optimism that you may be seeing in the air?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think especially when it comes to climate change, literally every single conversation that I've had this week, climate change has come up. I mean, not only because it's actually quite warm, and that was this year as well, but also I think the big media attention around. Yes, on the Sunday when I took the train to come to Davos, and actually on the snow as you come in, there's been on large letters written "Act on Climate." So this is obviously a lot of interest and people talking about it, but also what is the impact on business as well. For example, yesterday I was at a session with Professor Nouriel Roubini discussing the impact that rising seas can have, where many believe that by 2050, up to 10% of the population may be forced to migrate just because of rising seas. And there's obviously a lot of economical and societal impact of some of these environmental effects.
Certainly, potential impacts can be huge there. And Henri, I just want to ask as well, I mean, one thing that people always wonder, coming out of Davos, there's a lot of talk in the air. Obviously, it's a place where a lot of people meet. But are there any big developments that we're really seeing on the table to be expected? Anything that's going to change substantially that people outside of Davos may actually see hitting their sort of financial markets or daily news in the days and weeks ahead?
Well, I think it remains to be seen. I think one of the big benefits of Davos is I think it's one of the only time of the year you have all these leaders and CEOs together. For example, only this week is about more than 50 heads of state of government in Davos. So I think a lot of the fact that these people have a chance to meet not only officially, but also most of the time informally, separately of their public appearances. I think there's a lot of catalysts that can happen there. One of the areas that I'm watching a lot for this week is the interaction of a lot of these business leaders with political leaders, with civil society leaders, and hopefully there'll be something good that comes out of it. There's a reason the World Economic Forum has been going on for 50 years, and there's a reason I think so many people come here year after year, despite the conditions and the difficulties of getting to Davos, actually.
Certainly, people do keep coming back. There seems to still be a place of reference, influence, and power. It'll be interesting to see what does come out of it in the long term. Henri Arsalanian joining us there from Davos. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Keep warm, although it doesn't look too bad, I must say. Compared to previous years, you guys look like you're doing all right. But regardless, for those at home, keep watching at blocktv.com for all the latest in news and information. I'm Asher Westrop-Evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.